Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something huge. I mean, truly massive. We're diving into how India manages to feed over 1 billion people. It's an incredible story of logistics, policy, and, well, human survival. So, when we say a country is food secure, what are we really talking about? It's way more than just, having enough food on the shelves today. It's about creating a system that can withstand shocks. Because believe me, when the stakes are this high, a small problem can spiral into a national disaster in a heartbeat. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get a handle on what food security really means. Then we'll look at who gets hit the hardest when things go wrong. After that, we'll jump into India's amazing two-pillar solution, see how it's evolved, and then we'll talk about what it all means right now. Okay, let's dive right in. What is food security, really? You might think it's a simple idea, but it's not. It's actually built on 3 absolutely critical pillars. And here they are: availability, accessibility, and affordability. You can call them the 3 A's. Now, the key thing here is that they have to work together perfectly. I mean, think about it. You could have mountains of food in the country, but if people can't actually get to it, or if it costs too much for them to buy, well, then the whole system falls apart, right? All 3 have to be rock solid. This quote really puts it perfectly. It's not just some abstract policy goal. No, it's a promise to every single person in the country that they'll have access to food. And that promise is most important when things get tough, during a crisis. And that's why this is so critical. A disaster like a drought or a flood isn't just a single bad event. It's a trigger. It sets off this devastating chain reaction. First, food production tanks. That leads to shortages. Then prices go through the roof. And before you know it, the people who are already struggling the most are facing actual starvation. And if you want to know the cost of failure, well, history gives us a brutal lesson. The Bengal famine back in 1943, it wasn't just a food shortage. It was a total system collapse. Millions died. That memory, that national trauma, has been a driving force behind India's food policy ever since. So that brings us to a really important question. When a crisis hits, who's actually most at risk? Who are the people on the front lines of this battle? Well, the truth is, the risk isn't shared equally at all. Out in the countryside, you've got people like landless farm workers or traditional artisans, folks whose income can vanish overnight. And in the cities, it's the casual laborers, the ones working odd jobs or in seasonal industries. You see the pattern here? It's all about economic instability. That's what leaves you exposed. And it's not just about what job you have. The risk factors run much deeper. We're talking about people who've been uprooted by natural disasters, migrants who are just trying to find work. Even social status plays a huge role. And then there are groups like pregnant and nursing mothers, and especially young kids under 5 who are biologically just so much more vulnerable. Okay, so we've identified the problem and who's most at risk. The next logical question is, how do you solve it? How did India build a system to tackle a challenge this enormous? This is where it gets really interesting. The whole thing rests on 2 incredibly powerful pillars. You have the buffer stock on one side. That's basically a giant national reserve of food. And then you have the public distribution system, or PDS, on the other. That's the delivery network that gets the food from the reserve into the hands of the people. Let's talk about that buffer stock first. It's pretty much what it sounds like. The best way to think of it is like a giant national food savings account. It's filled with staples, mainly wheat and rice, and it's there to be used whenever there's a shortage or some kind of emergency. So how does this savings account get filled? It's a pretty neat 3-step process. First, of course, the farmers produce a surplus of crops. Then, a government agency, the Food Corporation of India, or FCI, steps in and buys that surplus from them. And here's the kicker. They buy it at a preset guaranteed price called the minimum support price, or MSP. This is so important because it ensures farmers get a decent income. Then, that procured grain is stored in massive granaries all over the country, just waiting for when it's needed. So, you end up with 2 really important prices in this whole system. You've got the minimum support price, the MSP, which is the good price the government pays to farmers. And then you have the issue price, which is the super low subsidized price that people pay for the grain at the ration shops. The government basically eats the difference in cost to make sure food is affordable for everyone. And that brings us to the second pillar, the public distribution system, the PDS. This is the logistical beast that makes it all happen. We're talking about a network of what are called fair price shops or ration shops, and they're everywhere. This is the system that connects those giant government granaries right down to your local neighborhood or village. It's the final crucial link in the chain.
Now, a system this huge didn't just pop up overnight. Oh no, it has changed a lot over the decades. It's been tweaked and refined to become much more targeted.
You can really see the story of that evolution right here. Way back when, the system was universal. Pretty much everyone was eligible. But then, starting in the 90s, you see this big shift. They started targeting it, first on remote areas, then sharpening the focus to just the poor. By 2000, they even created a special scheme for the poorest of the poor. The whole idea was to get more efficient and make sure the help was going to the people who desperately needed it. And all of this leads up to 2013, when the National Food Security Act actually made food a legal right. So how they do all this targeting in the real world? It basically comes down to different colored ration cards. If you're in the poorest of the poor category, you get an Antiodia card, which gives you the biggest subsidy. If you're below the poverty line, or BPL, you get a card with a still pretty hefty subsidy. And if you're above the poverty line, or APL, you still have access, but the subsidy is much smaller. It's a tiered system designed to push the most resources to the bottom of the pyramid.
Okay, so after decades of change and fine-tuning, where does that leave things today?
The real turning point was that 2013 National Food Security Act. This wasn't just a policy anymore, it became the law. It made access to subsidized food a legal right for a mind-boggling number of people. We're talking about covering up to 3/4 of the rural population and half of the urban population. That is huge. And when you step back and look at the big picture, this whole incredible, complex system, it's about more than just filling stomachs. The real goal is to give people nutritional security. It's about building a foundation so that people can live a life with dignity, so they can go to work, send their kids to school, so they can actually thrive, not just survive.
So that leaves us with one final big question to think about. With one of the world's largest food programs, has India actually defeated hunger? Or is the fight just changing? With new challenges on the horizon, like climate change and economic uncertainty, maybe the battle for food security is just evolving into something new, and maybe even more complex.